For 40 years, Dr. Donna Kay Whitmore kept the letter that changed her life in a frame on her office wall. The letter that had arrived in 1968 when she was a struggling pre-med student, informing her that an anonymous benefactor would pay for her entire medical education. No name, no contact information, just a promise that someone believed in her potential enough to invest in her future. Donna Kay had spent decades wondering who her mysterious supporter was, writing thank you letters to a P.O. box that never responded, and building a successful medical career while carrying the weight of unpaid gratitude. Then, in 2023, a phone call from an elderly lawyer in Memphis would reveal the truth that would bring her to tears. Her anonymous benefactor had been Elvis Presley, and she was just one of 847 students whose lives he had quietly transformed through education. How could the king of rock and roll have secretly funded the education of hundreds of students for over 2 decades without anyone knowing, and why would this revelation change everything we thought we knew about Elvis's true legacy? This is the extraordinary story of hidden generosity, systematic kindness, and the moment when nearly 1,000 grateful hearts learned they owed their success to the man who gave them everything while asking for nothing in return. It was September 15, 1968, and Memphis State University was buzzing with the energy of a new academic year. 20-year-old Donna Kay Whitmore stood in the financial aid office, clutching a folder of rejected loan applications and fighting back tears. The daughter of a cotton mill worker from rural Tennessee, Donna Kay had dreamed of becoming a nurse since she was 8 years old and had watched her grandmother struggle with diabetes without proper medical care. She had earned straight A's in high school, scored well on her entrance exams, and been accepted to Memphis State's prestigious nursing program. But acceptance letters don't pay tuition bills, and the Whitmore family simply didn't have the money to make Donna Kay's dreams a reality. The financial aid officer, Mrs. Melba Jean Roberts, had been sympathetic but clear. Without a cosigner for additional loans or a significant scholarship, Donna Kay would need to delay her education and work to save money. For a young woman from a family where no one had ever attended college, this felt like watching her future slip away. Donna Kay was walking across campus, trying to figure out how to tell her parents that their hopes for her education had been dashed, when she made a decision that would change everything. Instead of heading home to deliver the bad news, she stopped at the campus library and spent the next 6 hours researching every possible scholarship opportunity. She applied for 17 different scholarships that day, ranging from academic merit awards to need-based assistance programs she had never heard of. Most required essays, some wanted letters of recommendation, and a few seemed like long shots, but Donna Kay was desperate enough to try anything. 3 weeks later, she received a letter that would change her life. The envelope bore the letterhead of Magnolia Educational Foundation and was addressed to Miss Donna Kay Whitmore in elegant script. Inside was a letter that read, "Dear Miss Whitmore, it has come to our attention that you are a deserving young woman with exceptional academic potential and a genuine desire to serve others through the nursing profession. An anonymous benefactor has reviewed your application and academic record and has chosen to provide full financial support for your education at Memphis State University. This support will cover your tuition, books, room and board, and a modest living stipend for the duration of your nursing program. The only requirements are that you maintain good academic standing and continue to demonstrate the character and dedication that brought you to our attention. Your benefactor wishes to remain anonymous and asks for nothing in return except that you pursue your education with the same determination you have already shown. We believe that investing in your future will benefit not only you, but all the people whose lives you will touch through your career in nursing. If you choose to accept this support, please sign and return the enclosed acceptance form. Your first semester's expenses have already been arranged. With warm regards and best wishes for your success, the Magnolia Educational Foundation." Donna Kay read the letter 3 times before the words sank in. Someone, she had no idea who, had decided to pay for her entire education. Not a loan that would burden her with debt for decades, but a gift that asked for nothing in return except that she pursue her dreams. She ran all the way home to tell her parents, who were equally stunned and grateful. Her father, Bobby Whitmore, a man of few words who had worked in the cotton mill for 28 years, simply said, "Well, I'll be damned. Somebody up there's looking out for you, honey." Her mother, Charlene, cried tears of joy and immediately started planning a thank you dinner for whenever they might meet this mysterious benefactor. But as Donna Kay would learn, such a meeting would never come, at least not in the way she imagined. Donna Kay excelled in her nursing program, driven partly by natural talent and partly by the awareness that someone had invested their faith and money in her success. She graduated magna cum laude in 1972 and immediately began working at Memphis Methodist Hospital, where she specialized in pediatric care. Throughout her 4 years in school and the early years of her career, Donna Kay tried repeatedly to learn the identity of her benefactor. She wrote thank you letters to the Magnolia Educational Foundation, but they were returned with form letters stating that the anonymous donor preferred to remain unknown. She researched the foundation itself, but found no public records or listings that might provide clues about its leadership or funding sources. The mystery became a constant presence in Donna Kay's life. Every professional achievement, every patient she helped, every moment of career satisfaction was tinged with the awareness that she owed it all to someone whose identity she didn't know. She kept the original letter framed in her office, and over the years countless colleagues and patients noticed it and asked about the story behind it. "That's the letter that made my career possible," Donna Kay would tell them. "Someday I hope to meet the person who wrote it and thank them properly." As the years passed, Donna Kay's career flourished. She earned her master's degree in nursing administration, became head nurse of the pediatric intensive care unit, and eventually rose to become the director of nursing services at what had become Methodist University Hospital. She married fellow nurse Billy Ray Morrison in 1975, raised 3 children, and built a life centered around service to others. But through it all, the mystery of her anonymous benefactor remained unsolved. Donna Kay never stopped wondering who had changed her life with a single act of generosity. She kept detailed records of her career achievements, thinking that someday she might be able to show her mysterious supporter what their investment had accomplished. What Donna Kay didn't know was that she was part of something much larger than a single act of charity. She was one piece of a systematic operation that had been quietly transforming lives across the American South for over 2 decades, funded by someone whose name was known worldwide but whose greatest act of generosity remained completely hidden. In 1961, Elvis Presley had made a decision that would define his legacy more than any song he ever recorded or any movie he ever made. At the age of 26, already a global superstar with more money than he had ever imagined possible, Elvis had been deeply affected by a letter from a young fan. The letter came from 16-year-old Patsy Lorraine Crawford of Tupelo, Mississippi, the same town where Elvis had been born in poverty 26 years earlier. Patsy wrote that she had been accepted to nursing school but couldn't afford to attend. She wasn't asking for money, she was simply sharing her disappointment with someone she admired, not knowing if Elvis would ever see her letter among the thousands he received. But Elvis did see the letter, and it affected him profoundly. Here was a young woman from his hometown, facing the same barriers that could have prevented his own family from escaping poverty if music hadn't provided a way out. Elvis had always been generous with individual acts of charity, but Patsy's letter made him realize that random kindness wasn't enough. If he really wanted to make a difference, he needed to think systematically. Elvis called his accountant, Gladys May Thornberry, into his office at Graceland and presented her with an idea that would consume millions of dollars and require absolute secrecy. He wanted to create an education fund that would provide full scholarships to deserving students from poor families across the South. The operation would be managed through a private foundation. The recipients would never know their benefactor's identity, and even Elvis's manager, Colonel Parker, would be kept in the dark. "I want to give kids the chance I had," Elvis told Gladys May, "but I don't want anybody to know it's coming from me. This isn't about publicity or tax breaks or making me look good. This is about changing lives." Gladys May, a meticulous woman who had managed Elvis's finances since 1959, understood immediately that what Elvis was proposing would be a massive undertaking. Systematic charitable giving on this scale would require careful planning, legal structures, and ongoing administration. It would also require a level of discretion that went beyond anything she had managed before. Working with Memphis attorney Beauregard Bo Lawson, a soft-spoken man who specialized in charitable foundations and estate planning, Gladys May created the legal structure that would become the Magnolia Educational Foundation. The foundation was deliberately designed to obscure its funding source while providing legitimate, sustainable support for education. The operation was elegant in its simplicity. Applications would come through college financial aid offices, which would forward promising candidates to the foundation for review. Elvis would personally review every application, making final decisions based on academic potential, financial need, and what he called heart, evidence that the applicant genuinely wanted to help others. Once selected, students would receive complete financial support through graduation, but they would never know that their anonymous benefactor was Elvis Presley. The foundation's correspondence was handled by Bo Lawson's office, and all financial transactions were processed through a series of accounts that made tracing the money back to Elvis virtually impossible. The first scholarship was awarded to Patsy Crawford She graduated from nursing school in 1965, began working at Tupelo General Hospital, and spent her career caring for sick children, never knowing that her education had been funded by the most famous person to come from her hometown. By 1968, when Donna Kay Whitmore received her life-changing letter, the Magnolia Educational Foundation had already helped more than 200 students pursue careers in nursing, education, social work, and other service professions. Elvis's selection criteria had evolved over time, but he consistently chose applicants who showed both academic promise and a genuine desire to help others. The operation required careful financial management. Elvis was earning millions of dollars annually from his music, movies, and live performances, but supporting hundreds of students through 4-year degree programs represented a significant portion of his income. Gladys May estimated that between 1961 and 1977, Elvis invested more than $3 million in the scholarship program, money that could have purchased dozens of cars, houses, or other luxuries, but which he considered the most important investment he ever made. The secrecy was absolute. Colonel Parker, who managed every other aspect of Elvis's career and finances, was never told about the foundation. Even members of Elvis's inner circle, the so-called Memphis Mafia, were unaware of the systematic nature of his educational giving, though they knew he often helped individuals with school expenses. Elvis insisted on reviewing every application personally. Late at night, when Graceland was quiet and he couldn't sleep, Elvis would sit in his office reading essays from young people who reminded him of his own humble beginnings. He looked for evidence of determination, compassion, and what he called the spark, that quality that suggested a person would use their education to make the world better. Some applications moved him to tears. Stories of single mothers working multiple jobs while attending school, young men who were the first in their families to seek higher education, women who wanted to become teachers in communities that desperately needed good schools. Elvis saw himself in these stories, remembering what it felt like to be underestimated because of poverty and background. The selection process was rigorous but compassionate. Elvis rejected applicants who seemed motivated primarily by money or status, but he was willing to take chances on students whose academic records showed potential rather than perfection. He understood that poverty often meant attending underfunded schools, and he looked for evidence of character and determination rather than just grades. By 1970, the Magnolia Educational Foundation had helped over 400 students, and the logistics of managing so many scholarships had become complex. Gladys May had hired 2 assistants who specialized in educational funding, and Bo Lawson's law firm had dedicated staff members who did nothing but manage the foundation's operations. The impact was extraordinary. Scholarship recipients were graduating and beginning careers that transformed not only their own lives, but the lives of countless others they served. Donna Kay Whitmore's pediatric nursing career was just one example of how Elvis's investment was paying dividends in ways that couldn't be measured in dollars. But the scale of the operation also created risks. With hundreds of recipients and thousands of family members who knew about the mysterious anonymous benefactor, it was remarkable that the secret hadn't leaked to the media. Part of this was due to the rural, working-class backgrounds of most recipients, families who weren't connected to entertainment industry gossip networks. Part was due to the careful legal structures that made tracing the funding nearly impossible. Most importantly, it was due to the absolute discretion of the small number of people who knew the truth. Gladys May, Bo Lawson, and his 2 assistants were the only people outside of Elvis himself who understood the full scope of the operation, and they had sworn oaths of confidentiality that they honored completely. Elvis's motivation for maintaining secrecy wasn't just about privacy, it was about preserving the purity of the gift. He had seen how public charitable giving could become entangled with publicity, tax benefits, and social expectations. By keeping his educational foundation anonymous, Elvis ensured that his giving was motivated solely by the desire to help others, not by any secondary benefits. The secrecy also protected the recipients. Elvis understood that being publicly identified as Elvis Presley scholarship recipients could overshadow their individual achievements and create unwanted attention. By remaining anonymous, he allowed his beneficiaries to succeed on their own merits, carrying only the private knowledge that someone had believed in their potential. As the 1970s progressed, the foundation continued to grow. Elvis had established automatic funding mechanisms that would continue the scholarships even if something happened to him, and he regularly increased the annual budget to keep pace with rising education costs and to support more students each year. By 1975, the program was supporting over 600 active students and had helped more than 500 others complete their educations. The alumni network, though they didn't know they were connected, included nurses, teachers, social workers, engineers, and other professionals who were making significant contributions to their communities. Donna Kay Whitmore, now Dr. Whitmore, after earning her doctorate in nursing administration, had become one of the most respected healthcare professionals in Memphis. She had authored papers on pediatric care, spoken at national nursing conferences, and mentored dozens of young nurses who were following in her footsteps. Every achievement felt like a tribute to her unknown benefactor. In 1976, Dr. Whitmore established a small scholarship fund of her own at Memphis State, providing assistance to nursing students from rural Tennessee. She couldn't afford to fund full scholarships like her mysterious benefactor had done for her, but she wanted to pass along the gift of opportunity that had transformed her life. "Somebody gave me a chance when I needed it most," she told the university's development office when she set up the fund. "I want to do the same for others, even if it's just a small way to pay forward the blessing I received." What Dr. Whitmore didn't know was that her decision to create her own scholarship program had caught the attention of Elvis's monitoring systems. Gladys May kept track of scholarship recipients throughout their careers, partly to measure the program's impact, and partly because Elvis was genuinely interested in their success. When she reported that one of their 1968 recipients had become successful enough to establish her own scholarship fund, Elvis was deeply moved. "That's exactly what I hoped would happen," he told Gladys May. "She's not just using her education for herself, she's helping others get the same chance she had. That's what this is all about." In 1977, Elvis was planning significant expansions to the scholarship program. He wanted to extend funding to students pursuing careers in music and entertainment, believing that talent and creativity deserved support regardless of economic background. He was also considering expanding beyond the South to provide scholarships nationally. But on August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley died suddenly at Graceland, leaving behind a musical legacy that would endure forever and a charitable legacy that remained completely hidden from the world. The immediate aftermath of Elvis's death created a crisis for the Magnolia Educational Foundation. Nearly 300 students were currently receiving scholarships, with their funding scheduled to continue through graduation. Elvis had made provisions for the program to continue, but the legal and financial complexities of managing such a large operation without its founder's direct involvement were daunting. Gladys May and Bo Lawson faced a difficult decision. They could gradually wind down the program, ensuring that current recipients completed their education but accepting no new applicants, or they could find ways to continue Elvis's vision, possibly by revealing the foundation's true nature and seeking additional funding sources. After consulting with Elvis's estate and his father, Vernon Presley, they chose a middle path. The foundation would honor all existing commitments, ensuring that every current scholarship recipient could complete their education. But given the complexities of Elvis's estate and the need to maintain secrecy, no new scholarships would be awarded after 1977. The last Magnolia Educational Foundation scholarship was awarded in August 1977, just days before Elvis's death, to an 18-year-old named Mary Catherine "Kathy" Bell from rural Arkansas who wanted to become a teacher. She graduated in 1981, began teaching elementary school in her hometown, and spent her career educating children in one of the state's poorest districts, never knowing that her anonymous benefactor had died just as her educational journey was beginning. For the next 4 decades, the secret of the Magnolia Educational Foundation remained locked away in filing cabinets at Bo Lawson's law firm. Gladys May retired in 1982, taking the secret with her to her grave when she died in 19. Other members of the small administrative team either passed away or maintained their sworn oaths of confidentiality. Bo Lawson, now the sole keeper of Elvis's greatest secret, watched as the years passed and Elvis's public legacy focused entirely on his music and entertainment career. Books were written, documentaries were made, and academic studies were conducted about Elvis's impact on popular culture, but none mentioned his systematic charitable giving because none of the researchers knew it existed. Meanwhile, the scholarship recipients were building remarkable careers and contributing to their communities in exactly the ways Elvis had hoped. Dr. Donna Kay Whitmore had become chief nursing officer at the largest hospital in Tennessee. Bobby Ray Hutchinson, the 1965 recipient from Alabama, had become a civil engineer who designed rural water systems that brought clean drinking water to poor communities. Ruby Jean Morrison, who received her scholarship in 1969, had become a social worker who spent her career protecting children from abuse and neglect. Each of these success stories, and hundreds more like them, represented the fulfillment of Elvis's vision. The money he had invested in education was generating returns in the form of better healthcare, improved infrastructure, protected children, and educated communities. But the connection between these achievements and Elvis Presley remained invisible. By 2020, Bo Lawson was 95 years old and one of the last people alive who knew the truth about the Magnolia Educational Foundation. His own children and grandchildren knew he had managed a charitable foundation for decades, but they didn't know the identity of the foundation's founder. The secret had been so well kept that even some of Bo's own family members were unaware of the full story. As his health began to decline, Bo faced a moral dilemma that had been weighing on him for years. Elvis had sworn him to secrecy, and maintaining that confidentiality had become a point of professional and personal honor. But Bo also believed that Elvis's charitable legacy deserved to be known and celebrated, and that the scholarship recipients deserved to know the identity of their benefactor. In late 2022, Bo made a decision that would finally reveal Elvis's greatest secret to the world. With the help of his grandson, attorney Jonathan Lawson, he began the complex process of contacting former scholarship recipients to invite them to learn the truth about their anonymous benefactor. The legal challenges were significant. Many recipients had moved multiple times over the decades, married and changed names, or were difficult to locate through conventional means. The foundation's records were complete, but turning names and last known addresses from the 1960s and 1970s into current contact information required extensive detective work. Jonathan Lawson hired a team of private investigators who specialized in locating people for legal and estate purposes. Working with outdated records, they began the painstaking process of tracking down nearly 800 former scholarship recipients across 17 states. The search took 8 months and revealed the extraordinary impact of Elvis's investment. Of the 847 students who had received Magnolia Educational Foundation scholarships, 791 were still alive as of 2023. They included doctors, nurses, teachers, social workers, engineers, and other professionals who had built successful careers and contributed significantly to their communities. Some of the stories uncovered during the search were remarkable. Dr. Patricia Ann Sullivan, who had received a scholarship in 1963, had become one of the first female surgeons in Mississippi and had performed life-saving operations on thousands of patients. James Robert Bobby Williams, a 1971 recipient, had become a high school principal who transformed struggling schools in rural Georgia. Linda Sue Jenkins, who graduated with foundation support in 1975, had become a nurse practitioner who provided health care to migrant farm workers across the Southwest. Each of these careers represented lives that had been touched, communities that had been served, and problems that had been solved because Elvis Presley had quietly invested in education. The ripple effects were incalculable. Patients who received better care, students who got better educations, families who had access to clean water, children who were protected from harm. In March 2023, Jonathan Lawson began sending letters to the scholarship recipients who had been located. The letters were carefully worded to prepare them for a revelation that would be emotionally overwhelming, while respecting the gravity of the secret that had been kept for nearly 50 years. Dear Naim, the letters began, "You are receiving this letter because you were a recipient of a scholarship from the Magnolia Educational Foundation between 1961 and 1977. As you know, this support was provided by an anonymous benefactor who wished to remain unknown during his lifetime. We are now in a position to reveal the identity of your benefactor and would like to invite you to join other recipients at a gathering in Memphis, Tennessee, where you will learn the truth about the person who made your education possible." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Phone calls and emails poured into Jonathan Lawson's office from former recipients who had spent decades wondering about their mysterious supporter. Many had tried to research the foundation over the years, but the legal structures designed to protect Elvis's anonymity had made such research impossible. Dr. Donna Kay Whitmore, now 75 years old and recently retired from her position as chief nursing officer, was among the first to respond. She had kept that original 1968 letter for 55 years, and the possibility of finally learning her benefactor's identity was emotionally overwhelming. "I've wondered about this person every day of my career," she told Jonathan Lawson during their phone conversation. "Every patient I helped, every nurse I mentored, every life I was able to touch, I always knew it was possible because someone believed in me when nobody else could afford to. I'll be there." The gathering was scheduled for June 16, 2023, what would have been Elvis's 88th birthday, at the Peabody Hotel in Memphis. The location was chosen partly for its capacity to accommodate a large group and partly for its proximity to Graceland, though the scholarship recipients didn't yet understand the significance of that proximity. Of the 791 living recipients, 634 confirmed their attendance at the gathering. Some were too ill or elderly to travel, others had conflicts they couldn't resolve, but the majority were determined to finally learn the truth about their anonymous benefactor, even if it meant traveling across the country to do so. The weeks leading up to the gathering were filled with anticipation and speculation. Recipients connected with each other through social media and email, sharing their scholarship stories and trying to guess the identity of their shared benefactor. Some theorized about wealthy philanthropists from the Memphis area. Others wondered if their benefactor might have been a successful businessman or heir to a fortune who had chosen to give back to the community. None of them guessed the truth. On June 16, 2023, 634 former scholarship recipients gathered in the Peabody Hotel's Grand Ballroom. They ranged in age from their early 60s to their mid-80s, representing careers spanning medicine, education, social work, engineering, and dozens of other professions. What they had in common was the life-changing experience of receiving unexpected support from someone who had asked for nothing in return. Jonathan Lawson stood at the podium, looking out at an audience whose collective achievements represented one of the most successful charitable programs in American history. Before revealing the truth, he wanted them to understand the scope and impact of what they had been part of. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jonathan began, "you are gathered here today as recipients of scholarships from the Magnolia Educational Foundation, a program that operated from 1961 to 1977 and provided full educational support to 847 students. You were selected from thousands of applicants based on your academic potential, your financial need, and your demonstrated commitment to using your education to help others." He paused, looking around the room at the faces of people who had spent decades wondering about this moment. "The total investment in your educations exceeded $3 million, making this one of the largest private scholarship programs ever conducted in the American South. Your benefactor personally reviewed every application and made every selection decision. The program was designed to be completely anonymous, and until today, fewer than 5 people in the world knew the identity of your supporter." The room was completely silent. Everyone understood they were about to learn something that would change their understanding of their own life stories. "Your anonymous benefactor," Jonathan continued, "was Elvis Aaron Presley." The silence lasted for perhaps 10 seconds before being broken by gasps, cries, and the sound of chairs moving as people stood in shock. Some recipients began crying immediately, others sat in stunned disbelief. A few laughed with amazement. The emotional response was as varied as the individuals in the room, but the impact was universal. Dr. Donna Kay Whitmore felt as if the world had shifted around her. The mysterious benefactor she had wondered about for 55 years, the person whose generosity had made her entire career possible, had been Elvis Presley. The man whose music had provided the soundtrack to her youth had also provided the foundation for her professional life, and she had never known. As the initial shock subsided, Jonathan continued his presentation, explaining how Elvis had conceived and funded the program, how the selection process had worked, and why the secrecy had been so important to maintaining the program's integrity. "Elvis Presley wanted you to succeed on your own merits," Jonathan explained. "He didn't want you to be known as Elvis Scholarship recipients because he understood that such a label might overshadow your individual achievements. He wanted to give you opportunities, not publicity." The revelation reframed everything the recipients understood about their own success. They had built remarkable careers and made significant contributions to their communities, but now they understood that their achievements had been made possible by one of the most famous people in the world, someone who had used his wealth not for personal luxury, but to create opportunities for others. The gathering continued for 3 hours as recipients shared their stories, expressed their gratitude, and tried to process the magnitude of what they had learned. Many spoke about how Elvis's music had been part of their lives growing up, not knowing that he had also been supporting their educations. Others talked about the impact the scholarships had had on their families and communities. Bobby Ray Hutchinson, the civil engineer who had brought clean water to rural communities, stood to address the group. "I've spent my whole career trying to figure out how to thank the person who made my education possible," he said, his voice breaking with emotion. "I never imagined it was someone whose music I'd been listening to my whole life. I built water systems because I wanted to help people the way someone had helped me. Now I know that someone was Elvis Presley.